Hello and welcome to another episode of the TF Cast.
Today with us, we have guest Joel Iverson of St. Eater. He's going to talk with us about some of his work and his upcoming show, My Bicycle. It'll be opening tomorrow, Friday, the what of?
It's the 29th.
The 29th of January, 2021. All right, Joel, just give us a little introduction to yourself and your work. What's going on here?
Yeah, man. So about 3 years ago, I built this paint spinner. I've always wanted to paint, but I just never really was able to draw or anything like that. So I didn't really have confidence in the art, world, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I always, wanted to. And then when I found spin painting, that's really where I kind of took off and built these things. But, yeah, I guess I don't know. I grew up here. There's that. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm rambling already.
Oh,
but
no, you're fine. Well, for the uninitiated,
Yeah.
the paint spinner, the object you built and spin painting, for the audience who might not know, describe these things.
Yeah. Okay. So what I did was I took, with the help from Key City Bike here in Mankato, I basically fabricated this canvas spinner out of bicycle parts. And, I didn't really know anything about bicycles beforehand. So Brian down at Key City really helped me out, just learning how to, just the different parts, the names, how to take it apart, how to grease it, all that. And just putting in some volunteer hours down there really, helped me learn on how to go about building the thing.
Okay.
It's not the first one I built. I built one, like I said, like 3 years ago out of, skateboard parts and a wooden frame, but I didn't really have much control over, the spin, the speed and everything. It was just too out of my hands.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It seems like quite the undertaking. Like what motivated you to build the object? I mean, that seems like almost more work than just doing the painting.
Right. No, you're totally right. I don't really know. I guess I put my mind to it so much that I kind of, I don't know. It was almost just, I saw it and I was like, I know I can do that. I know I can build it. It's just, I know it's going to take a long time.
What did you see?
Well, there's a few different artists out there that I saw doing spin painting. A lot of them, they would hook up their canvases to, like a fan that has the grating off of it. I saw another guy using just like a handheld drill.
I've seen where they'll spin it on a drill.
That's yeah.
Tape it on there or something.
Yeah. And, that stuff is awesome. It really is. But when I finally found one guy that he built a spinner out of a bike, that's where I really noticed on how much you can control the paint while it's on the canvas. And I guess that's the main thing that motivated me to keep going, is just because I knew that if I built the thing the way I wanted it to, I could learn how to paint with it. But yeah, it was just a lot of trial and error. And there's plenty of times that I was just like, fuck this. Like, why am I even trying it? Like, because it was just in my buddy's garage that I was trying to do it. But yeah, I definitely had a few meltdowns trying to build the thing. Yeah. But
Seems like an adventure. So I'm curious, I guess with that style of, can you describe how you make the paintings? Like, so you've got a spinning thing that acts like kind of like a plate that you put the canvas on.
Yeah.
And then what do you do to get the paint on it?
So basically what I did is that I build all my canvases. So they're all sturdy out of wood, but I put the canvas, I stretch it over top of it. But I just took these like 3/4 inch thick boards that I glued together, and there's this little channel that sits on one of the hubs of the bike, and I'm able to clamp the wood to the bracket, which then I screw into the canvas. So that's how the canvas is being held on. I guess a note that I could make too is that down at the art show, at my bicycle, I'm going to have the spinner down there so you can really get a better idea of what it really does and how it looks.
Cool.
But in any case, so at first I'll hook up the canvases to the bike, and then it's just kind of pouring, okay, I want this background, do I want a solid color? Do I want it to be more, what do you want to call it? Hypnotic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a matter of cranking the spinner at whatever speed I want it to go. That was a whole nother part of this whole process, was just trying to figure out how I can make the paint behave the way I want it to. Because, if I was just to put paint on a canvas and then just crank the hell out of the thing, it's just going to go everywhere. And it looks cool. Like, I've made plenty of paintings like that, but that's where that control comes into play. Like with the drill and the fan, you can only go one speed, or I guess 3 speeds on a fan if you really wanted to be specific. But with the bicycle components to it, I'm able to, put down, a couple different paints, kind of finger paint almost, if you will, for a minute. But then as soon as I start cranking it, if I go at a certain slow speed for a long period of time, it'll become more soft and more delicate. One series I have down at the show is all based on the Power Rangers, and that's a really good example of everything you can do by just controlling the speed of the thing. So that's all just basically the background, or it could just be the painting itself too. But another aspect I added to it was the troughs of paint that I swing over the spinning canvas, which makes these like tearing tidal waves of color that I don't know, I find it really fascinating, because there's so many variables to it that, one, you can't really see, but also, two, I don't really know how to explain it very well. Like, just the dynamics of the swing and everything was just a hell to figure out. But
it operates like a pendulum, right?
So
you have it's spinning one way and then a pendulum releasing the other way.
Yeah.
So it is predictable. You can control it, but yeah, that is you. So it's a bucket of paint on there, or how do you make the drip go at a certain rate? How do you control that?
So the troughs that I made are just, again, pieces of wood that I just threw together. But the variables that come into play with that is, one, the height that I in my apartment, it's kind of it's a situation there right now, but basically I have these poles set up. It's like a trapeze is exactly what it is. But the higher the trapeze, the slower the swing's going to be. But the lower I make it, the faster it'll be. So that's how I can gauge exactly where the placement of the paint is going to spill over. But again, with that, it's the angle of the trough too. If I don't have it angled enough, it's going to just slightly drip over the canvas, which that's very cool as well. I've made plenty of those. But then also, if you make it steeper, when it goes over, then it starts this tearing, characteristic, I guess. And it's really fun just to kind of tinker and figure out exactly ways that I can manipulate that. But it's still so fresh, and I'm still finding out things like every time I paint. So
how often do you get the opportunity to?
Dude, that's the shitty part about all that. Sorry, but so I work construction, so I'm on the road a bit too often for my liking, honestly. But lately, what it's been is I'll go to work, whether it's out of town, in town, but it's all just prep work. So building canvases, stretching canvases, getting the spinner cleaned, ready to go, getting my whole paint area clean and ready to go. And then it's just a surge over the weekend of just like, I can do a lot of paintings in one sitting, but that doesn't mean that there's no thought that goes into it. There's been plenty of weekends that I've just tried one and just been like, I'm not feeling this. Like, I'm over it. I'm just going to wait. And that was kind of the undertaking with this show, was that when I signed up to do it, I can't thank Dana enough down there at 410. But when I signed on to do it, I was assuming, okay, I'm going to be near Mankato so I can work on this consistently. But then a few things fell into place at work that I was just gone, like pretty much November and December. I was just working on the painting, getting everything ready just on Friday night, Saturday morning, and then just back on the road. So that part was really stressful, to say the least, but yeah, I don't know.
So with your installation on that, what would someone expect showing up to see it? Like how many paintings, kind of like whether you did different parts of the exhibit, or you mentioned the Power Rangers.
Yeah. So a lot of the paintings at the show are all just kind of based on nostalgia, I guess, or just being a kid. Mm-hmm. So there's the Power Rangers series. So that's 6 right there. They kind of take up the main wall. But then I have 2 others that are based on Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. And then there's a few that I also made that are just kind of more based on just little stories that from my childhood, or just random thoughts that I've had. But then there's 3 new ones that I actually made that I haven't shown anybody. I've teased it, but there are 3 new ones that are all based on my family. So I'm pretty psyched to show everybody those. But you have to go down to the show to see those. So
cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that really grabbed me about your work in general, and I've got a couple right here, is like the way that it seems like gravity is at play. And the thing that jumped out at me was that maybe instead of using like a paintbrush as a tool to apply the paint, it's gravity instead. And that was kind of a different way of looking at that style of putting the paint on the canvas.
Yeah.
There's like an element of play with that.
For sure. And kind of like I was saying before, like I don't have the dexterity to paint. Or like I want to. Like I've always wanted to draw, and like it would be great, but I frankly, if I'm being honest with myself, it just comes down to I don't have the patience to learn. But I guess I have patience enough to learn how to build this fucking thing. But
3 of them,
right? Yeah, go figure. But in any case, yeah, it's. I think that's kind of the thrill about all of it, is that I can set things in motion enough to paint what I want to paint. But that's as far as I can really go. So it's kind of like an odd, I don't know what you want to call it, relationship with the spinner, of just kind of like, okay, here's this variable, da 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 da. And then I just kind of have to let go and just hope it works. But the thing that also kind of is a pain is that it never goes right, ever. Like the paintings you see are the ones that went right, but I think I've probably done a total of like 100 of these things, but a lot of them it's just the paint hit a certain way, or the paint dried wrong, or the trough was too low and hit the canvas. There's all these little factors that it's unfortunate that I have to go through so much paint sometimes, but I'll look at a painting and just be like, that's I don't dig it, like I don't want it, and then I'll just scrape it off. And sure, I could just make a bunch of them and be like, yeah, no, there's this one, but I don't know, they mean more to me than that. If it doesn't land right, then I want to do it again.
I hear that in some of the stuff that you were saying before, that you'd taken some memories or like things about your family or childhood and use them as kind of like the creative variable to add to these things that may not always be the output control you get. How do you apply those memories or thoughts to the process?
That's actually a really good question, just because I was trying to think of a way to really explain the 3 paintings I did about my family, because there's a lot of underlying meaning to both of, or all 3 of them, because I did one for my mom, one for my dad, and then one for my brothers. And that was kind of the first time that I really put a lot of thought into exactly how it's going to land and how fast and everything. So like the one with my mom's is kind of pretty straightforward. Her favorite color is orange. So I really wanted to make one for her, and I'm a mama's boy anyway. So it was just, I really wanted to make one for her, but I wanted the paint to be a consistent loop. I used the troughs and everything for this one, or these. And I wanted to be a consistent loop just because she's always just been there. Mm-hmm. I hope this is kind of what you're asking.
Certainly.
But then the one like with my brothers, it's, you can see all these in person, but I'm just trying to describe them, is that it's a consistent color for most of the tidal wave, but then it turns white. And what I'm trying to kind of say with that is that when I was younger, it was always just so, it was like my brothers. I know my brothers, period. But then once you get older, it's just kind of like, man, we're all doing our own separate thing. I don't really, I'm not saying like I don't know you, but it's you know, you're all adults anymore. It's no longer big brother, little brother. It's brothers.
Certainly.
But it's maybe not more involved, you know? And then with my dad's, that one was kind of, I don't know, harder to make just because I was playing around with the underlying color of the trough, because when the trough swings, whatever color is on top is going to hit first, and then you get, you know, the kind of rainbow looking effect. But when it swings back, that's where you get the undercolor. So that's the one thing I've been really playing around with. And with my dad remarried, and it was kind of an odd situation and kind of put some tension between him and I. So that's kind of what, with his, it's like this perfect loop-de-loop. And the first loop is, you know, a lot of earth tones, which really reminds me of him. But then the underside of it is kind of a deep crimson color. And that's kind of the like, we kind of hit something off. So like I wanted to showcase that of, you know, families are never necessarily perfect, but you know, I love them all to death, and I wanted to kind of add them in there, even though it may not be the prettiest all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to think about the paint, you know, coming out onto the canvas through the trough as some kind of expression of time. Mm-hmm. That hadn't occurred to me at all, or even changing the colors. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and that's a big thing I've been trying to screw around with lately, is just like the trough alone. You can only do so much, but now I'm thinking more of like, okay, how can I now make the trough do what I want it to do, not just pour the paint? Like, how can I make it spread out before it hits the canvas? But that's a whole nother section of trial and error I got to figure out.
Yeah,
but
sounds like as much of an engineering feat as anything else.
Okay.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
How about this? A paint can, or like a can of beans with a bunch of holes in it.
Yeah.
And spin that, and then
yeah. Totally.
That could be interesting.
No, for sure. And I've done something sort of similar. I just did a paint can with one hole, just to make like a big spiral, and those are fun. But like, it's only, you kind of feel a little silly after a while, just throwing the can and just being like, okay, I'm just gonna stand here and wait, and all right, it's done, and then take it away. But
yeah,
I mean, granted, I guess I kind of do that with the troughs too, but I don't know.
Well, it's back to the brush thing. It's like a different application of paint technology, you know?
Yeah.
I was at the hardware store. They've got all the different shaped tools, like a little corner wedge and your rubber brushes, and then your regular paint brushes. And then, of course, you get into the paint, I don't know, like acrylics or oils, and you've got the fans and the little pointy ones and the big ones.
Wait, they have that at the hardware store?
No, I mean, I'm expanding on the idea, but
that sounds like a cool hardware store.
Right.
And my mom's an artist, and she'd always do, well, not always, but like at times she'd experiment with using the palette knife, and just she'd do oil paint with the palette knife and create all kinds of interesting textures. So I like that you're kind of playing with that element of chaos, and then I guess finding interesting ways of relating that to relationships and associations you have with things.
Yeah, no, and that's, I don't know. I'm hard pressed to say this just because I don't want to take flack from any artist out there who does a certain style or what have you. But like, that's the big thing that I really want to try to push with all this stuff, is that it's not just throwing paint on there and just calling it a painting and then hey, give me money for this. Like I don't like that, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like abstract art can get a bit out of hand, just with, here's this painting and I'm going to call it, the midst of my Oculus. That's cool. I'm not knocking that whatsoever. It's just the fact of I can't necessarily relate to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not anything negative or anything like that. It's just with my cadence, my vocabulary, my lifestyle, who I am, that doesn't work. But me making a painting about Kill Bill the way I wanted to, or me talking about a weird story about opening Pokemon cards or something, it's that I enjoy more than out there thinking, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those criticisms, like where people, focus on, being able to directly interpret something, are a little bit lazy on behalf of like the general audience. Like it's almost like they're going out of their way to not understand it and then critique it at the same time.
Totally.
So, taking into context who the intended audience is, more of that pop art stuff is, very well received. Like you can make a series about the Power Rangers, and most of us saw the Power Rangers growing up, and they can relate to those color schemes and see how you arrived at those conclusions. So, I mean, they're both valuable in their own accord.
For sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the Power Rangers was definitely a huge, I don't know, that to me is definitely a big example of everything you can really do with the spinner. Like, yeah, each of them have their own colors. Like, okay, the Green Ranger is green, the blue is blue, but it's the, like Tommy's, the Dragon Zord or whatever. I wanted to look more like rough and scaly, but green, but then Billy's, I wanted his to look like a flare of a Triceratops horn, so there's a lot of that stuff that it's not easy to try to paint something like that and not touch it, so it's, I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, but I do agree that yes, sometimes I feel like art can be a little bit forced with being out there, whereas I guess I'm just speaking on my style of I want the people looking at the painting and reading what I write and everything to be like, hell yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. I had no idea about Trini when I was younger either. Like the Yellow Ranger, sweet. I don't know. But,
with the way that artists or non-artists perceive the artwork and its value or something, like I think people have a habit of seeing someone breaking the rules and being like, oh, they must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
They're just like cranking out paintings almost literally on bike cranks.
Right, yeah.
But that really it's like it's a criticism of the, I don't know, almost the like simplicity, but I don't necessarily think that's very accurate either, because like it doesn't simplify all elements. It's like a little bit of a different way of getting to a result, and like you could do things with it that you couldn't ever do with a brush.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a lot of sense to explore those alternative methods.
For sure. Yeah. And honestly, I wish I could paint with a brush. Like I honestly like hold like artists on such a high regard who paint like especially with oils. I cannot figure out oils whatsoever. But so with my stuff being kind of me playing around with chance, I sometimes, I don't know, feel odd saying it, just because then I kind of feel like I'm not doing anything, even though I'm doing a shitload.
Yeah, you're rolling the dice a lot.
Right, yeah. And paint's not cheap either. So it's I don't know. I feel odd sometimes talking with other artists who are painting a beautiful painting of like a woman, and it's like weeks or months of work on one painting, and I feel kind of selfish, or not selfish,
Yeah.
unrelatable to them, just being like, oh, well, here's 3 that I did over the weekend, you know, and it's not like I'm knocking my stuff by any means. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, that's apples and oranges. I have a question that I was thinking so when I've looked at spin paintings before, I have always had a portion of them exist, like with the pendulum stuff. Some of
Yeah.
it, to me, I've always been able to expand it beyond the canvas or like see that in my mind. And sometimes I think that's like part of the artist's hand in it. And I wonder what you think about that, or if any of your paintings do that.
Honestly, could you kind of repeat the question? Sorry.
So so you'll see like the pendulum stuff where it comes around like a single line of paint, and then you can tell based on the angle of the lines that it would continue if the canvas was larger, and you can look at that and expand it in your mind, just like knowing how those ovals would work.
Yeah.
And like seeing that style before, I've always thought, well, maybe that's part of the artist's intent. And as someone who does it, I was just wondering if you agree with that sentiment, or
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
There's like every time before painting anything, like I'll just spin the canvas with no paint involved or anything, and just sit and just drop the trough without paint. And just at first when I was doing it, I couldn't really I couldn't see it in my mind's eye of what it was going to look like. But now, as soon as I see the trough move, it's like, okay, I know that if I drop it from right here, it's going to like spin past the painting and then come back in. So it's a lot of, it's watching exactly where the paint's going to land and how I want it to land. And adding like the larger canvases, it definitely makes it more frustrating, but it makes it a lot more fun, because then you can really see the whole thing. And there's a lot of options there.
I think what's cool about viewing that sort of artwork as well is you see it on the wall, and it kind of paints a picture beyond the boundaries of the canvas, I think is like what Jacob was saying too, where you can really envision what it might be like. It's almost like a little bit of a window into an alternate space with much more psychedelic colors or interesting patterns.
No, for sure. And I think
it's cool.
I really enjoy the fact of, if you didn't know I was using it with a bike and troughs and everything, like it's weird looking at it, just being like, how did that work? But I like showing the bike and everything, and I think I think it's kind of important for kids or whomever. If you have an idea of like, that's cool, I want to do that, whether it's painting with a regular brush or with a bike or whatever, you can figure it out for sure. It's just a matter of asking for help. That's honestly why this took so long, is because I was stubborn.
That's actually a really good segue into something that I wanted to ask, because we brushed over it early in the beginning. You talked about engineering your third one, and how you just kind of said, oh, I was at Key City and Brian helped me. And like, how did you end up, from like, how did you get directed there, or end up as a non-bicycle person going to a bicycle co-op and designing something out of bike parts?
Well, I knew Brian just in passing through a few buddies, but I had no idea that he was even involved down there. And as soon as I got word that he was down there, I was like, okay, I know what I can do with these parts. I just don't know what they're called. I don't know, like looking at a bicycle diagram online, I was just scratching my head, I just need the thing that clicks. I need that part. And then going down and talking with Brian, I was just like, what is this? Like, I have no idea. And him, directing me and showing me, okay, this is the rear hub. This is how this works. Here's these bearings. And honestly, what it came down to was just hanging out with him and, building bikes down there. And I think Key City is just such an awesome program. And I really can't say enough good things about them. But yeah, it was intimidating going in there, because I had no idea anything about bicycles other than how to ride it.
Have you become a more more involved cyclists now, or are you just building paint spinners?
I want to go down there and rebuild like a street bike for myself. That's actually kind of what I was doing before all the, COVID shit happened. But yeah, no, I really want to get more involved with the biking community down here. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's one of Mankato's most active.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like everything down with like the bike polo and everything.
Yeah. Is that something that appeals to you? You want to?
I don't know if I have the balance for it, man. Honestly.
Oh, come on.
I don't know.
You couldn't be that far off. I mean, you build these things. You do all kinds of stuff. I think anyone can play polo.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like, it is intimidating. Like I ride bikes a lot, or I used to ride a lot, and like polo to me is still like, it seems like a commitment.
Oh, it's crazy. I love going down there and watching it. It's really fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
well, and a fun collaboration for you to have your show at the 410.
Yeah.
Dana's spot, and she's a big cyclist. So it's all coming together.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And she's really helped me out more than I can really say. Like I would be so lost without her. So.
How did you end up like how was the show at the 410 pitched to you? Were you looking for an outlet for your work, or?
Well, so I was making these paintings, but I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't know if anybody would really like them, and I didn't know if anybody would really want to learn about it. And so I was with my friend Sarah, who's a photographer here in town. Me and her go way back, and I was kind of kicking around some ideas of like, okay, maybe how can I show this more outside of just social media? Mm-hmm. And she was telling me about how the 410 will sometimes have, kind of like a communal show of you can have one painting in there along with a bunch of other artists. So I was like, all right, I'll just do that. I'll just put one in, and if there's some sort of attention to it or whatever, I'll just kind of take it for what it is. And then I emailed Dana about it, and she actually was just like, hey, we have a spot open. You want in? And to be completely honest, I immediately just said like, yeah, I'm all in for sure. And then probably the next morning, maybe 2 days later, I was like, shit, I do not have enough for this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is silly. And so it was kind of just like a random, okay, yeah, let's lean into this. Let's try it and go from there. And I don't know. I really like where this is all leading to. I mean, especially with how welcoming the art community is. Like, I just met you yesterday, man.
Yeah.
Now we have 2 t-shirts that
are
similar.
We get the shit shirts.
Yeah. But still, it's really cool. It's really cool to be a part of, or becoming a part of this.
Well, you're there. I mean, you can't undo it. You're there.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. No, there's only one way out.
Right.
What was the most challenging part about preparing for the gallery show?
Honestly, I think the hardest part was all the little tiny things, like the labels. Do I want that? Where do I want them? Like, because the paintings, I after a while at least, I knew, okay, these are the ones I want. That's cool. I don't even need to think about it anymore. But then it started coming down to just, do I want all of them to have a resin coating? Do I even want these stories to be put on there? And then there's just I don't know. I have anxieties about a lot of stuff, but it was a lot of getting over the fact of like, okay, everybody's going to see all this stuff I make, and I don't know everybody, like that to me is hands down the hardest thing to handle. I think.
Yeah, it's like their first impression of you.
Dude, right? Yeah, it's like this like, I love my friends, I love my family obviously, but it's like, yeah, of course you're going to say that it's sweet. Mm-hmm. Even like, so then to have it out there and them not even knowing who I am, it's kind of just like, crap, I hope you think this is cool, or I hope you think my writing is okay. I hope you don't pick up on the spelling errors or whatever. Like, it's all that stuff kind of in my head. And it's definitely been a bit of a challenge just to be like, just cool your jets, man. Just let this ride. Yeah.
I think if it's any consolation, I think people will like it. I saw
Thanks,
it.
dude.
I got a preview, and I think you should go see it too.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys bringing me on here. This is really really stellar.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's
Yeah.
very cool. I just wanted to ask, I guess we could finish with like maybe plans for the future. You got plans for after this show?
Yeah, that's actually, I've been kind of kicking around a lot of ideas with Dana about exactly what the next thing to do is. And with how fast this is all happening, like unfortunately, I'm not going to have prints at the show. I don't have that stuff yet. So after the show, it's pretty much just paint and get prints, get more tangible things for people. You know, I want to make like buttons out of the Power Ranger series, like things like that. But then another thing that kind of came up was when I was on Shuffle Function this morning. I'm kind of hazy on their names right now, sorry, but they were saying that, you know, there's a summer art festival here in Mankato, and she was just like, you should go down there and just set everything up and just do it live. And I was like, that's a pretty sweet idea, because I have all this, you know, this little like painting pen, I guess, that I made just so I can do it in my apartment and paint doesn't get everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that I want to look into and see exactly how I can do it. And then after that, it's okay, let's do another show. Like I like this. I like the planning. I like the camaraderie. So I just want to do it again and then do it bigger and then see where else I could go, you know?
Nice.
Yeah. And I'll definitely keep you guys in mind, because I would love to come back here and
Cool.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're in it. No
Yeah.
escaping now, like Jacob said.
Right. Yeah. But
Well,
Well,
we wish you go for it.
Yeah, if we're wrapping up, you want to do any more shout outs? Anyone you want to say hi to while you're on here or anything?
I guess just friends and family. Like, they know who they are. For
Social
sure.
media plugs, your own. Where can people find your work online?
Yeah, you can find it on Instagram. It's at Joel J. Iverson. And then, I mean, you can look me up on Facebook too. Yeah, the show, it starts on Friday the 29th. They're going to be open from 2 to 6, sorry. And then close for an hour. And then we're going to have a reception there from 7 to 9. And I'll be down there for that. So I'd love for people to come down and talk and, you know, just check everything out.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you the best with it.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Right on.